let's start again. You are very, very welcome to our annual meeting point final session that can take place thanks to the support from the Arts Council, along with the New Voices of Ireland Commission, Grant and Capacity Building. They are the programs we are running currently. And our guest speaker for today is Anne O'Connor, the head of arts participation at the Arts Council. And in this role, Arts is responsible for the funding, development of participatory, collaborative, community, socially engaged arts practices, including context areas such as arts and cultural diversity, health, disability, community development, and creative aging. And prior to her appointment with the Arts Council, Anne worked as an arts consultant with artists, arts organizations, and partners from the public, private, and community sector. She has also held numerous development and management positions in the arts and community development sector, with HSE, Cork 2005 European Capital of Culture, Sligo County Council, Blue Drum, Irish Rural Link, and practiced as visual artist, working in community education and health context for many years. Anne has a BA in Fine Art and a higher diploma in youth and community work from Maynooth University. So great, Anne, to have you here today. We are absolutely delighted. You are the most popular guest speaker we've ever hosted. So that, that is incredible. And yeah, I think without further ado, I will just pass the floor on to you. And as said, maybe at the beginning, for those who missed it, guys, please keep your cameras on as far as you can. This is much nicer for the guest speaker to talk to people, to talk to faces, and not to talk to this blank screen. And please keep your mics muted because of the background noises that happen, and that is natural while we are all working from home now. But please keep it in mind and try to keep the background noise as far down as possible. Thank you very, very much for this. And after the session, there will be Q&A and also wrap up and a discussion among us if you want to stay for this. Thank you. And Anne, you are more than welcome. Thank you very, very much for finding time to join us and talk to our cohorts, because I know, and we all know, how busy you are with the Arts Council, with all the changing scenery all the time. So thank you, and you're welcome.
Thank you so much, Monica, and I'm delighted to be here to speak to you all as part of the Meeting Point series. And I know everybody is very busy, and these are challenging times for us all. So it's great to be able to just take half an hour, a couple of hours, just to connect, and I'm happy to take questions at the end. So I was going to just use some PowerPoint slides, so that'll work if your camera's on or your camera's off. And I hope it will work. And then after that, and really I was just going to talk a little bit about what guides the work. Actually, can everyone hear me okay? You can, okay, sorry. I was having some issues. Wave at me if you can't. But just to talk a little bit about what guides the Arts Council, to talk a little bit about the area of arts participation, because that's the area of work I'm responsible for, and then to talk a bit about funding programs and some of the kind of common mistakes we see coming in, and then we can have a larger discussion about anything I have or haven't covered. So I will just try and share the screen here, and we will see how we go. So bear with me. Has that materialized? Yes, great, thank you, Monica. Great, so as many of you will know, and some of you might be very familiar with some of this, but that the Arts Council is artscouncil.ie, because I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. So if you want more information, that's the place to go. and it's the national government agency for funding, developing and promoting the arts in Ireland. And the Arts Council was established back in 1951, and we have an Arts Act from that time also. So all of that is of interest to some and of less interest to others. I think the most important thing to know for this time is that the Arts Council is guided by a 10-year strategy that's still current and will run until 2025. It has 5 objectives, 2 of which I'll talk a little bit about, but just to say what the 5 are, they're the artist, public engagement, investment strategy, developing capacity, and spatial and demographic planning, all of which are important. But I think the first 2 are probably most relevant to most of our areas of work across the organisation and the arts teams. So the artist, and this goal here on top is what's in making great artwork, the strategy that artists are supported to make excellent work which is enjoyed and valued. And there were 5 key objectives under that, and under that there are many more objectives. So I will spare you from all of that, and you can find them in the strategy. But just to give you the key tenets of this that are very important and very live to us every day. It's not a strategy that sits on the shelf. So the first one there is valuing artists working in a broad range of contexts. And actually, I seem to be missing some of my image credits, so apologies. There was a credit there. That's 2 artists who are working in Kilkenny Collective for Arts Talent, KCAT, in Kilkenny. So the valuing artists working in a broad range of contexts is particularly relevant to the work we do in arts participation. Because it's in, I suppose, atypical arts context, and we'll talk more about that. But also the other objectives are supporting artists at key stages in the life cycle of their careers, advancing the living and working conditions of artists, and ensuring a supportive working environment, as well as international practice and relationships. And obviously, Culture Ireland also has a very key role here in terms of international practice. So if you're unfamiliar with Culture Ireland, you can just look them up at cultureireland.ie for those of you who are interested. With regard to public engagement, the goal is more people will enjoy high quality arts experiences. So this has a number of objectives also, planning and providing for children and young people. And just to say, there's a specific team at the Arts Council called Young People, Children and Education. And if you're particularly interested in this area, it would be good to look that up on the site and contact the team, or you can contact any of us, but they specialise in this area, as well as arts education in schools. And the other key objectives would be to develop good practice in audience development and engagement, create opportunities for increased engagement in the art by particular communities, and that's again an objective that resonates very closely with the work of the arts participation team, and to champion and encourage amateur and voluntary arts practice, which is also a really important area, and an area really that hasn't received the attention it deserves up until now. So when we talk about this area of arts participation, as you can see, I'm not going to go through all of these, but there's at least over 20 terms you could use that some of them are interchangeable and they mean the same thing, and some of them are not, and they're more nuanced, and people are coming like yourselves from different perspectives to this work. And that just is really an exercise I did one night when I was trying to look at terminology, and I'm quite sure there are a lot more than this. And this is, but really the purpose of that and this, because they're connected, it's just a wordle, is just to show the changing landscape. There was a time in Ireland when all of this work would have been considered and referred to as community arts practice, and that's still the case today, but also there's a very expanded field. So we could talk all day about all of that, but what we currently refer to or mean when we say arts participation in the Arts Council at the moment is we include participatory, collaborative, community and socially engaged arts practices. So we will have to do another online conversation just about all of this, and but we'll leave it there for now, in that I suppose the main point is that it's inclusive and it's a continuum of practice and a broad range of ways of working. So I just want to describe maybe in a couple of points what we are looking at when we look at this broad range of practice. So as I say, it's a broad range of practice. There's the first point. But we're talking really, or we're prioritizing at present, professional artists working with non-arts professionals. So we're talking about people who are not professional artists. It's not just collaboration between professional artists. It's actually with everybody in Ireland, basically, insofar as they want to collaborate. And that, in our case, we put a priority on people who want to engage with artists in order to co-create or to artistically collaborate or to participate in a project. But in the Arts Council more generally, and also in arts participation, we also obviously want to work with people who want to engage as audience members or as volunteers. And there's a range of ways to engage with the arts, but in the arts participation team, we're particularly focused on those that want to work more closely with us and want to be part of the artistic vision and the artistic outcome. So that in a broad way, we say things like community of place and or community of interest. So that could be your local area. It could be a particular thing you have in common nationally, internationally. There's lots of different projects. We could use examples of, and one we often say is they're beekeeping, this is a community of beekeepers, or it could be around the key urgent issues of the day. So really it's for people to decide for themselves and in collaboration with the artists that they're working with. So the other thing I would say is key characteristics of the work is that they're developed in partnership, projects are developed in partnership and involve a two-way engagement that nurtures both the artistic, the artist, and the contributors, so that there's respect, not just respect in terms of courtesy, but also a genuine partnership of expertise and a fusion of ideas. And often we don't know where that is going to lead us. And it's often not the easiest work to do because it involves a lot of people, a lot of relationships, and a lot of priorities, but that can also make it very exciting work. And it can lead us to, the challenges of all of that can lead us to develop in new and unexpected ways. So we also look then for clear artistic goals and ambition alongside other goals. So whether that's inclusion, health, well-being, social change, all of those goals are extremely valuable and they're valued by the Arts Council. But if you have all of these goals and they're very clear, sometimes we forget in applications that come to us, we forget to think about what is the artistic focus of this work, and we forget to say it because it's so obvious to us as applicants perhaps. But that is something when it comes to looking at applications and looking at the quality of proposals that we look for. So then, let me see. There was something here. Oh, there is. I'm pressing buttons away. So just when I was talking about communities of place and interest, there are areas within that they're kind of specialist fields where there's also a long history of work and there's very particular expertise. And these areas intersect, and it's not exclusive to these areas, but just to acknowledge that they're there, and there's some very key fields of work out there. So in areas such as arts and health, arts and disability, culture, arts and cultural diversity, creative aging, and arts and community development. And I'm sure there are others. Amateur and voluntary arts, as I said, absolutely is one of those also that we have not really, what you see there is what we have prioritized in recent years. And going forward, we'll absolutely be prioritizing amateur and voluntary arts more so than we have been. So I just wanted to say a little bit about policy, and again, we can follow up, but to date, there has been no overarching policy in this area within the Arts Council. And we do have these policies over here. We have an arts and health policy, an arts and cultural diversity policy, and a lot of research and publications. Same in the area of arts and disability. And we have a 2019 equality, human rights and diversity policy that is very closely aligned with our area of work. But for the first time, we'll be looking at those areas and more, and the things where we aren't looking at, as well as the things that we are. So I would definitely be coming back to Monica and the Centre for Creative Practices and all of the other arts organisations that we work with to invite you into this conversation if you wish to be part of it, if it's something that interests you in your work. I should also say that obviously the work we do is across all art forms, so it's obviously not limited to any particular art form. So just to say, this new policy will look at what exists and will take into account things like making great artwork and our new environment, our new COVID environment, and the future. What will that mean for us going forward? Now that's something that will be happening in 2021, and we will come back to you on it. I don't have a lot of detail right now. So let's see. So just again, I won't go into too much detail, but I just wanted to let you know about the Equality, Human Rights and Diversity Policy. You may be aware of it, but it's a very key document, I think, for all of the arts teams of the Arts Council, and we really are looking at trying to integrate it into everything we do. But for the area of practice that I work in, arts participation, it's very, very relevant, and there's a commitment to, I'll just call out a little bit of it, to respect, support and ensure the inclusion of all voices and cultures that make up Ireland today. And there's an acknowledgement and an understanding that that is around all social backgrounds, ethnicities and traditions. And there is more about that and the 10 grounds of discrimination that we are wanting to uphold in the policy. And I'd advise you to have a look at that. It's on the Arts Council website if you're interested. And just one more piece on that, because it says many things, but this is a little bit faded, but something that's very important to us in arts participation is that this policy says that the Arts Council will take a proactive and focused approach to guaranteeing a basic human right, ensuring that everyone who lives in Ireland has the opportunity to engage with and participate in the arts. So that's a key tenet going forward. And I know it's very important to the staff of the Arts Council, the director of the Arts Council, and to the council members that this is integrated into what we do. And obviously that's based on the UN Declaration of Human Rights, also Article 27 for those of you I'm sure are very familiar with it, but you might be interested in looking that up if not. So there's a number of resource organisations in these areas. I'm going to name a couple, but there's a lot of others out there. And obviously the Centre for Creative Practices is a key organisation that you have already found in the sense that you're attending the meeting point, and I'm sure lots of other events. And I have just bolded there, this slide is a bit busy, but I have bolded the web addresses. And so I mightn't call them all out. Oh, I've forgotten that one, but I might call them all out actually. So so then we have CREATE, which is the National Development Agency for Collaborative Arts Practice. So they specialise in this area of arts participation. And I would look at their website and become a member if you're interested in this field of artistic practice. Arts and Disability Ireland is a national resource in the area of arts and disability. So that's adiarts.ie, and CREATE is create-ireland.ie. And we have Age and Opportunity, which is a national resource in the area of improving the quality of life for older people. So it's actually an organisation that does an awful lot of work around the area of older people and has an arts department within it. And they look at the area of creative ageing and run the Bealtaine Festival, which is a national festival some of you might be already very familiar with. And Waterford Healing Arts Trust is what this stands for here, and Waterford Healing Arts Trust runs artsandhealth.ie, which is a national website in the area of arts and health, and you will find out everything you want to know in the area of arts and health from that website. And it's sort of a national clearinghouse, and all of the work around the country is represented there in some way. But there are lots of other organisations. These mostly have a national remit, but there are lots of others who are really significant in their field and are resources locally, regionally and nationally and internationally indeed. But that's just to give you an idea, and they're very valuable sources of information. They all have e-bulletins and all of that. Just to talk a little bit about funding. Obviously, Arts and Health or artscouncil.ie is the place to go for up-to-date information. And I'm going to mention a few things here. And if I have a link that may lead me to the website, in which case we'll just look at a few deadlines. And if it doesn't work, you'll have to bear with me. So the awards listed here, they are awards that are particularly relevant to the area of arts participation practice, but they also apply in other areas. So the Artist in the Community scheme is managed by Create, and it has some project funding, and you would apply as an artist in collaboration with the community at the time of application. In other awards, maybe you would apply as the artist, but it doesn't need to be a joint application. So you can check out the Create website for more information about that. But that scheme also has professional development awards and with mentoring. So you could come up with ideas that are about working with other people, but you don't have to be working with someone. And you could identify other artists in the field that you might like to spend some time with and watch how they work, or discuss some areas of your practice with them. So it's a small amount of funding, but it's a really valuable amount of funding if you're looking to get into this area of work. Then there's the Project Award, the Arts Participation Project Award. Some of these, as we'll see in a minute, some of the deadlines have passed. So I will highlight anything that's upcoming, but if I don't mention a deadline, it means it has passed for the moment, and it will happen again in 2021. Arts grant funding, that's usually around March each year, and it's actually for a series. It's artists and organizations can apply, but it's actually for a program of work, so 2 or more initiatives or projects. The Arts and Disability Connect scheme is particularly for artists with a disability or who identify as having a disability. Artists with disabilities can apply to any Arts Council awards, all Arts Council awards, but there's particular supports in place within this scheme that can be very helpful if that's of interest to artists. There's a bursary award, which is just for artists. I think it'd be particularly relevant for people on this call. And the next bursary award deadline is going to be in January. And so that would be worth looking at. I actually don't have a date. It might be on the site, but we can update you if not, but it will be in January, and it won't be too early in January. There's a Next Generation Bursary Award, and that's for, it sounds like younger artists, but really it's not so much younger artists, but emerging in your career. So maybe you're doing that later, maybe you're doing it early, but it is about being that next generation, regardless of what age you are. I have put a line through travel and training for obvious reasons. That is a great award. Hopefully it will be back, but it's not possible to travel at this time. Now, other awards have taken its place, and I will talk about them now in a few minutes. And we have the Young Ensemble Scheme. That's relevant. It's actually managed by my colleagues in Young People, Children and Education. Sorry for all the acronyms and long titles. But there's lots of funding for young people, but this is if you are making a joint proposal with young people, and it's about young people's voice, and they're leading this proposal as opposed to kind of us telling them what to do and what a great idea it all is. So these are new schemes that came into being in 2020. So the COVID response scheme, or COVID-19 response scheme, that was earlier in the year and is closed now. But it was specifically for artists, and there will be a version of it in 2021 again. And the intention was that it's not overly complicated to make applications. It shouldn't be taking you as long as maybe some other proposals. And it was about trying to get funding out to artists to enable them to get some good ideas up and running. So then you might be able to apply for other funding later. So there will be a version of it back in 2021, and I will talk about that again in a minute. So this award here, the Professional Development Award, and it's for artists and arts workers or arts professionals. Now the deadline is November the 19th, which is this week. So it's been in circulation for a while. Now, you can apply tomorrow. It doesn't need to be on Thursday. It's 19th Thursday, I think it is. It could be tomorrow, it could be in any of the days upcoming. Just to say, there will be an opportunity. This award will reopen in 2021. So it will close before the end of the year. The deadline is November the 19th. If there is an extension, I'm not sure if there is, it would be just a week or something. So my information currently is this will close at 5:30 on Thursday. But if it does, and it will reopen in 2021. So there will be another opportunity. So if you want to look at the criteria and the guidelines, you can be thinking about this for 2021. Now, the other thing that's going to happen is there'll be a new scheme in 2021, as yet unnamed, which sort of amalgamates the COVID response scheme with the Professional Development Award. So it'll give you more scope for what you can apply for. And I would look out for that, but that will take a couple of months to come into being. So these opportunities will be there in 2021, but there will be a break between mid-November and maybe mid-January. And I'm sorry, actually, when Monica and I spoke about doing this, I did think at the time that we would have a lot more information about 2021, but considering we're developing new schemes and things are changing quite a bit, I'm not in a position to give you a list, unfortunately, at this time, but we should be able to do that as the weeks go by. And I would encourage you to sign up for the Arts Council newsletter if you haven't already, and watch social media, but particularly the newsletter, as it lists upcoming deadlines every month. And so you won't be missing anything, because things are changing at a great pace, really. So the Capacity Building Support Scheme is a really great new scheme as well, and it's actually for organisations. So if you're part of an organisation, you can make that application, as opposed to being for individual artists, which these are for. The COVID-19 Completion Scheme is only if you have received funding previously in 2019 for 2020, and it will give you a small amount of funding to help you complete your project, because inevitably your project has been stalled in 2020 due to a small matter of a global pandemic. So this is to try and support some of that work to come to fruition where that's possible. But it's not something you can apply for if you don't already have that funding, but all of that is in the guidelines. I'm just going to click on this and see, and even if I end up where I think I'm going, I hope I can come back. So bear with me. Just sorry now, look at that circle. We'll just give it 1 minute. So can you see that? Great. Now we won't dwell, because you can look this all up yourself, but I am just going to show you what's upcoming. So this is something you already, the Creative Europe. So I know a lot of people are interested in European projects. You have to have already secured funding for the cooperation projects under the Creative Europe program. Yeah, oh, I see you, Monica, sorry.
We cannot see the link. You will have to reshare the screen again. Okay, if you click on share the screen, and then you will be able to select the screen with the Arts Council website.
No problem. It's possibly not worth it, but just let me look and see, is it worth it? What can you see now?
Yes, now we can see it.
Okay,
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Because you can do this yourself. I mean, it's on the Arts Council webpage, and it's the funding. And I won't go through absolutely everything, but I just want to walk you through what's here. And as you can see, where there's a green button on the side, that means it's open at the moment. Where there's a yellow button, this is the funding available until the end of the year. Everything else then, and I'm going to go back up again, everything else, so there's quite a bit, is closed until later in 2021. But the ones that are closed, I would just say, if you're interested in any of those, click on them and download the guidelines from this year. And guidelines do change, but it gives you an idea of whether this is going to suit your ideas and your proposal. So I'm just going to go back up here for the minute. I've mentioned some of these already. I would urge you to look at the Professional Development Award. I know it's a very short amount of time now between here and Thursday, but you might have something already brewing in your folder of ideas that it may fit, or else you can think about 2021. Then I'm just going to tell you what's here, and you can go look yourself. There's the Writer in School scheme, so that's upcoming. There's an Architecture Bursary Award, Arts Participation Bursary Award. Actually, there's the deadline. It's the 28th of January, so that has gone up. So it wouldn't even be that it's just about arts participation, which is what I'm talking about today. But I mean, the bursary award is available in all art forms. So, you know, whether it's visual arts or music or theatre. So as you can see here, there's dance and circus. So the bursary award is key for the artist. It's about you, it's about your artistic practice. It's not necessarily about anybody else. And in the field of arts participation, where we work with so many people closely together, it's often about other people and about the partnership. And this bursary does give you an opportunity to focus on getting some time to think about what you need in order to do that work better. So it is about professional development so that you can do your arts participation work better, but you don't have to involve other people in that proposal if you don't wish to. So you will see these. We have Irish language awards and proposals, film. I'm not even going to list them all. Street arts and spectacle, opera, theatre, you know, the usual. There's a couple of other writers awards there, and now I'm gone down into, so we have awards there opening on the 15th. So that means you can't apply yet, but you can see the guidelines. So I'm going to leave that now because you can just see it's in available funding in the Arts Council website. And I'm just going to go back to this and see what else I have for you. Just let me move us to the side there. So some common mistakes. I mean, these are going to sound so obvious, but you'd be amazed, especially when we don't leave ourselves enough time. So I just asked my colleagues in operations, what do they see most often? So these are the answers I have gotten. So not reading the guidelines thoroughly. And that's something, I mean, and you know, especially if you've applied before and you think you know what the application is about, but guidelines do change. Even if it's something small. So I would still get out the highlighter and go through your guidelines when you're making an application. It just makes life so much easier when you're not missing anything. And I would encourage people obviously to read everything, but what I notice most, and if I could say one thing, it would be please read the purpose and criteria of the award, because even if your idea is absolutely fabulous, top class, if it does not fit the purpose and criteria of the award, it will not score highly in a competitive context. And this is a competitive context because we never have enough funding to meet the demand. So I would just really encourage people to do that, even though it's so obvious. And that's usually section 1 or 1.1 in the guidelines. And the other area I would again, not to ignore the rest, but I would look at what is usually 1.7 or thereabouts in the guidelines, and that is the mandatory supporting material. So often we mightn't read that far into the guidelines, or we might just look at the application and not the guideline, and we're missing something. And we don't even get to see the applications in that case, because at operations stage, when they're coming in, they say, well, that's missing a mandatory supporting document, therefore it won't be assessed and it's ineligible. Now, being ineligible isn't the end of the world, because if you're ineligible, you can submit your proposal or a version of your proposal again, where if you are assessed and unsuccessful, unfortunately, what has been assessed cannot be assessed again. So, I mean, it's always disappointing to be ineligible, especially over something you might have, but you just didn't have the time to read the guidelines, or you just didn't read them properly. So let me see, where are we now? Well, so I'll just
Just a second, just a second. Guys, somebody has the mic unmuted. Please mute it, because that is very loud in the background and it is very disturbing. Thank you. Just please make sure. Hello, somebody. Regina? Hello? I think, oh, maybe I will mute the person here.
No problem.
Okay. I think I was able to mute.
Great. So look, no problem. These things happen. Life, virtual life. But no supporting material. Maybe again, I suppose I think it's hard, you know, you get an application form, they're long, there's lots of questions, you have guidelines, another document, you think, why would I bother reading the guidelines when I can answer the questions in front of me? I just urge you to do it and spare yourself disappointment over something minor that you would have looked after. So that's what these relate to. No supporting material or a last minute application. And unless we have it ready to go, it generally, when you're up against others who have spent maybe a bit more time thinking about their idea, it might work out, you know, but often it's just not strong enough because you haven't put the time into developing your relationships with your partners or so forth. And I mean, I have written hundreds of applications in my time and they're often at the last minute, so I completely understand, but it's stressful. It can be stressful. And then this point that I made earlier, not meeting the award criteria, no matter how fabulous the idea, unless it's an open fund, there is very clear criteria and you do need to meet it. It doesn't have to meet everything, you know, every inch of the criteria, but broadly it needs to meet the criteria. So some of this, I don't want to repeat too much, but read the guidelines thoroughly. Give yourself plenty of time to submit your application. Call us if you have queries. Call the team. If you're looking at, be it visual arts, theatre, opera, arts participation, all of our contact details are on the website. If you have a question, or email us. And if you have a question, call us or email us about any query you might have. And also, if you're unsuccessful, there's all sorts of reasons for this, and often it's because there isn't the funding. And if there was more funding, more applications would have been supported. But sometimes there are other very concrete reasons too. But if you are unsuccessful, most awards, like 90% of the awards, have a written assessment that are part of the assessment process. And the written piece means that you would be shortlisted or not shortlisted. And that piece of text can be very valuable feedback if you're in the, like I would, you know, we don't always want to hear that feedback when we get a decision we don't like. So you can ask at the time or you can ask later. But I do think it's valuable to hear whether you were shortlisted and what are the key points that came up for some of the advisors we have and the assessments we do. And a lot of people don't realize that that information is available. So really, they're the kind of key points. I hope I didn't scoot through things too much or labor some of the points about guidelines, but I would encourage you to sign up for the Arts Council newsletter, obviously Facebook and Twitter and all of that, because we do have ongoing opportunities and thankfully increased opportunities in 2020, and we will have also in 2021, thanks to an increased budget from our department. And that has been a lot of extra support for the arts this year, which is very much appreciated and which we hope we can pass on to individual artists and wider organisations. There's a lot more to say in all of those areas, but I don't know if people have questions, or Monica, if you have anything you want me to cover in a bit more detail.
Thank you, first of all, very, very much for this overview. That is so critical for artists to hear it firsthand, because of course we try to keep people up to date about all upcoming opportunities. We do offer support and mentoring, and we do work with people even on applications if they have particular questions, but to hear it from you, from the person who knows both sides. You know from the times when you were applying what you missed, and you know it now from the side of the assessment process and the eligibility and all the criteria, and also from the availability of the funding, how it is all handled. So therefore, I think it is incredibly valuable, and I'm really glad you guys had the opportunity to get the overview and find out about the open and upcoming opportunities. And I think it's now up to you guys to ask you questions. So I think, Anne, is that okay?
Yes,
we open for questions. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, Owen?
Hi, thanks, Monica. Thanks very much, Anne. That was a very helpful presentation. I suppose I have two questions for you. One is more general and the other is quite specific. So for the general one, just in terms of the overall area of arts in social practice, would you recommend, like, for somebody who's kind of quite new to the concept, any general reading in a very broad sense in terms of, like, just, I suppose, achieving effective social change through art? For example, I know, like, Blind Boy, he did a master's in social practice in the creative environment, but obviously a master's isn't possible for everybody. But if it was like even a book or general reading recommendations.
God, there's so many. I would suggest at the moment, are you familiar with Create? If you're LinkedIn, I would go there in terms of finding so many links to lots of different articles, but also there's a series at the moment which is in terms of practice in the current environment in times of COVID and working in a virtual space with people, which is, I suppose, predicated on partnership and interpersonal relationships over time. So all of the nuances of the work, I think you'd be really pleased if you start to follow some of the threads that are on Create at the moment, because there's so much material available. And I would start there rather maybe than giving you one specific perspective at the moment, because that will lead you everywhere and internationally also, I think. So yeah, definitely do. And there's a regular e-bulletin, and you don't need to become a member or pay a fee to benefit from all of that. And if you wish to, then you can deepen your relationship and talk to Craig directly.
Excuse me,
if I can add quickly to it, I think also research of artistic project. If you research socially engaged arts, even the next Documenta 15, but this gives you that international context, has very strong focus on socially engaged arts. In the UK, the scene is very strong. So it is very interesting that artists engage with movements, with theories, with questions, with problems, and try to address them in an artistic manner, or working themselves or working with the groups. So definitely, I think Create is fantastic address, but also analyzing different projects is very useful exercise.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. I'll certainly check those out. Just one other question. It's in relation to the Training and Development or Professional Development Award. So I applied last week for one, and I'm just curious if I actually, my course was only like half the cost. If I saw another course that I wanted to apply for, could I submit a second application under that, or is it, yeah, to bring it up to closer to the full amount?
So you've already submitted an application.
Yeah.
So that's I would you could apply again next year.
Okay.
But
yeah,
you couldn't apply again this year, if you know what I mean. Now in this week, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah.
So you could have combined aspects within one application. But you can be thinking about your next application.
Okay, great.
2021. Yeah.
Thanks.
Anybody else? Do you have more questions, guys? John? Unmute yourself, please. You are muted. Or if you want, I can unmute you.
Okay, can you hear me? Hi.
Yep. Hi.
Hi, it's a message for Anne, please. Recently, I applied for the COVID payment of €3,000 and I was rejected. One of 630 people who were rejected, and we got the very cruel judgment on our artistic careers back from the Arts Council, of which kind of made me feel like, just like I always do think of the Arts Council, it's kind of run by administrators for administrators. And I think you need to be an administrator to apply for most of the grants that are there in the Arts Council. It's like when you go to art college these days, it seems to be more important to be able to write about your art than it is the actual art that you create, which is kind of killing the arts in this country. But you know, I'm kind of loath to apply for any more grants off the Arts Council because I really find myself getting very angry with the Arts Council and the way it's run. I mean, I wrote to every member of the board of the Arts Council after the COVID rejection. I haven't received one reply yet. This is like every single member of the Arts Council I wrote to. I didn't get one reply. And also it took them 2 months to pass on my letters to Ace Donna members who I wrote to. And they were pretty disgusted. It took 2 months to get the letters. But it's just, if you look at the Arts Council website, it's all set up for organizations and administrators. There are stuff for the artists, of course, but as I say, I feel you need to be an administrator to apply for an Arts Council grant. You need to be able to write about your work. I'm an old-fashioned artist. I'm a painter. I feel there's very little place for painters and sculptors in society these days within the arts. You know, most of the galleries that are funded by the Arts Council and the government are obsessed with conceptual art. So therefore, you know, we can't even get into the galleries that are run and funded by the Arts Council because they're totally biased towards conceptual art. And it leaves us painters and sculptors out in the cold with nobody to turn to. If we can't write about our work like an administrator, it's pointless applying to the Arts Council. And most people I spoke to who did apply for the COVID grant, we didn't expect to be judged on our artistic career in such a cruel way. And the fact that nobody would reply to any of my letters just leaves me thinking the Arts Council don't care about artists.
Well, I would have to say that the Arts Council cares deeply about artists, but I am really sorry that you feel like this and you haven't got the kind of response that is in any way satisfying. And I would urge you to get in touch, and I'd be more than happy to talk to you separately, John, about this and the process involved and what your proposal was vis-a-vis what the criteria was. But I would have to say it was highly competitive. So the funding that was there, it wasn't about judging artists for the sake of judging artists. It was just trying to, when you have to make a decision and you can't fund everything, therefore certain criteria is used and artistic merit is part of that. And it doesn't mean that the work is not artistically valuable and it is not valuable in other ways. So it would depend on the proposal and the criteria, and I don't think it's fair to everyone to get into the specifics of one individual application, and I wouldn't do that in any case, but I would be more than happy to talk to you about this separately. And I'm sorry you feel like that about it, and I think certainly it's true that I think it can be complex making applications at times, but the intention is completely to simplify and to make that easier for people, both this year and in coming years.
And you are muted, if you unmute yourself.
So basically, it was only about a week or two after the COVID payment rejection, the government gave the Arts Council an extra 20 million. So why weren't the rejected COVID payment artists given the money then after the Arts Council received 20 million extra after that? Why didn't you just pay them all?
John, we won't, like, it's the council and senior management, and there's a process in place, you know, so once decisions were made. So unfortunately, we didn't have that money at the time to increase those budgets.
Yeah,
so,
but can't you change your mind? And, you know, what about this fact that I haven't had one reply from anyone in the Arts Council?
John, that has been taken notice of, and I think it would be fair if we give other people also a chance to ask questions. Okay, it has been taken notice of, and I'm sure you can talk to Anne. And of course, I think it's very important to consider also the fact that everybody's working from home. The post might not be passed. We are in very, very critical times. I hear how frustrated you are, and definitely writing applications is a different skill to working on your art. That is absolutely the case. But we also repeat it always to the artists that the same way, like if a dentist runs a practice, they are not only working on the teeth, but there are so many other areas around. The same, unfortunately, applies to artists, and there are many opportunities. Even if you are making very strong point that during artistic education, you don't maybe get a chance to learn how to write these applications, but they are professional development opportunities, how to do it. And there are people like myself, there are other people like Create, there are people like Anne even, who are always there to help answer questions and to guide you through it. It is sometimes cumbersome. It is, of course, not what your main focus is, unless you understand that mastering it or getting it as good as possible will help your artistic practice. And if you embrace it, you have a chance to better develop it. So there are support for this, and I really, really would like to encourage everybody to look at these applications and administrative, if you want, part of your work as a part of your artistic practice. It is very important, of course, to have enough time for your art, but that buys you this time. Okay, I see you shaking your head, but let's maybe have this discussion another time. I would like to ask other people to have questions, if that's okay, John. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Can I just add, Monica, I do, because I understand the frustration, even just from, you know, it's not equally easy for people to make applications in terms of even language and English language and terminology, and when in doubt, I mean, you can call the team if there's something you're unsure about, or even obviously we can't help in the Arts Council with the detail of a proposal, which is something that we would later assess, because that's a conflict of interest. But certainly we can help with the broad principles and the outlines, and we can point you to other organizations and people that might be able to assist. And I know myself, and we say it within the Arts Council, to people making applications, let someone else look at the application before you send it in if you have enough time, or go to organizations such as Centre for Creative Practices or others. There's many others. And, you know, so do call or ask if in doubt. There's no such thing as a stupid question. And I know it's not equally easy for some people to make some of these applications and proposals. And we need to look at that and change the way we do some of that.
Hi, can I ask a quick question?
Sure. Who is this?
Virtue.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes. Sure.
Hi. I sent in a question before, but in case you didn't see it, I have just found out about you through a mutual friend who's actually on the call now, Zini Summers. And I have a quick question. I wanted to know if you work with designers, if you work with people that the designing sector, mainly fashion design and crafters, or is it just? visual arts and...
It's the arts as outlined in the Arts Act 1951.
I see.
So,
I see. Okay.
but having said that, sometimes your work might, you know, overlap and intersect with those fields, and so I wouldn't be saying no to anything, but what you'd be looking at in all cases is the criteria. So you have other supports, you know, the Craft Council and Design Council. So
yeah.
there are other supports for other fields, but it doesn't mean that those disciplines don't connect, and it doesn't mean there would never be funding there. It just means it would need to fit the criteria of the award. So you'd need to have a look at that, and if in doubt, you could call about it.
Okay, very great. Thank you.
Hi, Monica and Anne. I'm sorry, first of all, my camera's not working and I didn't know how to wave my hand on the screen. I can't find the button.
No worries, go ahead.
I hope it's okay. And I'm actually really glad Virtue asked the previous question, because basically I'm not a native Finnish person. So, you know, as a European person from somewhere else, what I find kind of a natural struggle is finding the networks of people. Like, for example, you know, if you're looking at co-applications, say, I was actually just last week thinking about creating fabric prints of abstract paintings, but and that would be definitely something I'd love to participate in the project or put a funding in for next year. But considering that I'm someone who doesn't do this full time and never went to art college here, where you'd normally kind of gather that information of where to find the networks of people. For example, if you're a more kind of emerging level artist, of where to find more senior artists or artists who have a different approach, who you'd love to learn from, is really difficult. So my question really is around, is there networking events, or is there web pages or mail lists or something where people could kind of go like, oh, I like that person's style or what they're doing, or what they're looking at putting an application in next year with, or that you could possibly put, you know, this is what I'm doing and these are possible venues I'd be looking at developing my own artistic practice.
Absolutely. I mentioned CREATE earlier, which is the National Development Agency for Collaborative Practice, and I mentioned that because they have a national networking event that is on in December, the 9th and the 10th. So it's usually an in-person event, but this will be online. So it's a great way to connect with your peers. And I should mention the most organizations like Centre for Creative Practices are running these meeting points, but artsandhealth.ie will also have a national event in the area of arts and health, and that's next Monday on the 23rd, and that's online as well. So if you're particularly interested in these areas, that's ways to find people. But it can be challenging, and you do need to connect with organizations who are providing kind of resources and establishing networking and trying to facilitate the development of those relationships, particularly at this time when we are all working remotely, if at all, and it is harder to connect. So I think those things are very important, and I know as the months go on, there'll be a lot of additional focus on artists, not only work and facilitating work and connections, but also in terms of health and well-being as we go forward. So in terms of networks, I feel like there was other things that came into my head there while you're speaking. And yes, the Creative Europe desk at the Arts Council would be invaluable if you're thinking about European projects and finding partners. Obviously you need to find partners outside of Ireland for that, to access that funding. So let me see, even if you just look up Creative Europe at the Arts Council, you will find the desk, and actually there's some networking events upcoming. I think there's something on Thursday. So forgive me.
Maybe you are checking it up, and I will quickly mention, we run a series of events which are called New Voices of Ireland. If this is for migrant and culturally diverse artists, that is a series that has been run now for 8 years. And the series, for this year, we've already selected artists who take part. This year we have 20 artists we work with. Normally we select 10 artists, multidisciplinary artists. We present through events, one event or series of events. And along with this, there are workshops as well, full day workshops where artists can meet each other. And we will be continuing this meeting points, which are now online, and probably we will keep it online for a while, because that allows actually nationwide reach, and people from everywhere can connect us. And we also have the newsletter. So if we can be of any help through the newsletter, through the Facebook, through the Twitter account, through the new Voices of Ireland or Meeting Point, please feel free to connect. We are delighted if we see new faces and new interest.
Thank you. I think I got really good answers. So sometimes just when you don't know what you're looking for, it's hard to look for, even if you're trying to be very active. But I think I got very good leads. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Any other questions, guys?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, I do have a question there. You know, since you've been talking about arts, I just want to know if it's encompassing of video, movies and musical art. But but you know, I've been hearing like visual arts, so I don't know where that stops and where it starts as well. Like, so if you could really like define that for myself, so I can have a clear understanding of what it is and how wide the scope is really, like, you know.
Well, if you want to look up the Arts Council website, it does kind of get into that, but I would say look at the film. We've a film team, and in a way, you know, I see that some of this is internal organization of work. And outside of the Arts Council, who cares what team is dealing with what? I just want to do my creative work. And there are lots of other agencies, obviously the Creative Ireland programme and Culture Ireland, and your head would melt perhaps looking at all of these possibilities and then seeing, can we fit, you know, does it fit? So I would just say, don't hesitate to call and don't hesitate to ask a question. And in the Arts Council, there is a music team and there is a film team. And depending on what kind of music you make and what kind of film you work on, there is funding available for both of those areas. But it wouldn't be commercial film. It would be more experimental film, and the kind of work that mightn't get supported in another way and mightn't end up in the cinema unless it's in a film festival. So that kind of work. And with regard to music, it's the whole range and scope of genres. So whatever music you're into, I mean, from kind of sound art to classical music, there is different funding there. So if you wanted to talk to those teams a little bit about your work and the kind of opportunities that are available, I know they'd be only too happy to talk to you. Don't hesitate to call the teams, truly. I mean, we could talk about it a little bit more, but I need more specifics, and I think it's probably fairer to be more general in the points. But if you wanted to contact me, I could point you in the right direction of who to talk to more about it. My email is on the website, but just I'll put it in the chat if anyone wants to drop me a line.
Oh, will do, because I think as creatives, we just want the license to create and being able to create. And
yes, I
you
completely
know,
understand.
It's you know, it's the bureaucratic red tape that John probably has a headache with, that, you know, we probably don't like, but we just
I get it. I do understand it. And then on the other hand, you have, if it's public money and there are priority areas and everything is quite rightly transparent and fair, and then it can make things more complex. But I suppose a key resource are all of multiple arts organisations around the country, but also your local authority arts officer is a very key resource in each of your counties or cities. and they work across all arts areas and are aware of the resources that are there locally and nationally, and can be, for some, a good point of call to make yourself known as an artist, and to find out what opportunities are there. And they vary, of course, between counties and cities in terms of what's available. But if you're unaware, I would look up, you're looking for the arts office in your local authority. That'd be a good source of information.
Can I ask a question? Maybe I'm not sure I picked it up right, but the emerging artist and the COVID that have merged, did I get that right, Anne?
They will merge.
And is that in part to look at alternative ways of presenting projects?
Yes, it's
so maybe you're looking at the digital context, and maybe you're looking at bringing groups together in a format like this or whatever it might be. Is that just, I just wanted to...
So if you want to upskill in any way that will assist your artistic practice. So that could vary, you know, maybe it's a technical skill you need to learn in order to do your work or later.
I don't want to bring it too much about myself, but for example, if you were writing a course, a creative course, or if you had an art practice that was, this isn't me, but if you had an art practice that was maybe mindful, but you needed to package that, or is that the kind of, you know, are those possibilities?
As long as there's, I would say there's kind of broad scope there, and I think the key principle is about the upskilling. So you as an artist. So
so it's not like art facilitation. It
could be, if that would help you in your work. It could be, but it's about making that case for how by doing this you are advancing your artistic practice, particularly at this time. But there are priorities within it, but in a way it's great because it's broad, but also but that's the principle. What's the professional development for you? How is it relevant to what you're already doing, and where will it take you if you do it?
Okay, cool, thank you.
Thank you, Gala. Anybody else? Zini.
Hi, Monica.
Hi, do I pronounce your name correctly?
Lisa, can you?
Zini?
Oh, no.
Oh, sorry.
You go on. I have a feeling it might be
something. Lisa.
Hi, thanks, Monica, for facilitating this, and really enjoyed the presentation, and thank you. I just put a question there in chat. I'm working with a German photographer who is based in Germany, and we're trying to bring a series of photographic exhibitions to Ireland, and also we have a film project. However, any steer you could give me or any advice on how I'd apply for funding, considering he's based in Germany and he's the artist, even though I'm working with him, I would see myself more as a coordinator and making the project happen. So have you come across something like that before, when there's two people involved from different countries?
Anne, you are muted.
Apologies.
No problem.
There is, you know, while the priority for funding, Arts Council funding, is for artists and activity that are based in Ireland at the time, you know, for the funding. But I mean, that would seem to have benefit here also. So I would look, if you're talking about photography, you're talking about visual arts practice, I would look at some of the visual arts awards. But also we have a new international, we've always had an international focus, but there's an increased international focus. So there are some new resources on the Arts Council website around international practice. And obviously Culture Ireland is very key, but that's more about presenting work outside of Ireland. So in a way, it's probably not so relevant. But I would have a look at that. I would talk to visual arts. I wouldn't rule it out, you know, just because there's a link in another country in the Arts Council funding. But there is the wider European partner finding partners, finding at least a third partner to develop a proposal with. And you could definitely talk to the Creative Europe desk at the Arts Council, and they may even have examples of other projects that are, be it in visual arts or other areas, that could be useful models to look at. So I'm being a little bit vague, but
that's fine.
I would investigate.
Yeah,
I would talk to Katie or others at the Creative Europe desk, and there are definitely lots of examples of practice that I mightn't even be aware of.
Yeah, because the work is Irish based. It's particular to a locality. So there's a retrospective exhibition we want to do, but we also want to do sort of a before and after project, but it's all based in Ireland. Plus it's work that can be compared to similar work that he did across Europe. So it's very much, you know, that serves both. But so it's the Creative Europe desk would be a starting
Creative
point.
Europe desk, or even what you're saying there most recently, I would talk to the visual arts team, and I would get the Visual Arts Project Award.
Great. That's brilliant. Thanks so much, Anne. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Zeni, you had a question, yes? Perfect.
Thank you so much for every information you've given us today.
Can you speak up a little bit? You are very, very quiet.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Better, yes.
Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on Virtue's, FJ's, and Lisa's questions in terms of the characteristics of what you mentioned when you're applying for your funding, especially for first-time artists that are just finding out about this. So based on the characteristics you mentioned earlier about stating clear artistic goals with your ambitious goals alongside inclusion, health, well-being, social change, that if that involves your musical skills as in musical theater, like FJ said, and costume design, like Virtue said, and an exhibition like Ryan, and it involves all of that in terms of what you're trying to do with your work. Under what would you apply if there's so separated, and if it's one person with that idea? Do the Arts Council or does the Art Council provide the help or even a team or link and network to other artists within the community that could help bring that together? Or is it up to the applicant to figure all of that out first, then fill an application, and then await, you know, the verdict of whether they're eligible or not?
Yes. I think with regard to what I was saying about arts participation, those characteristics or principles, they apply to collaborative arts practice or arts participation practice. So that can be any art form, any number of people, as long as you have professional artists working with others. So that would be, you could talk to the arts participation team about that. But if you're trying to put the idea together, find the people, you know, that kind of thing, then you wouldn't really need to go to the arts organizations out on the field, maybe even local authority arts officers in your area, and try and find the networks to connect with other people to develop those ideas. So it's a little bit of a mixed answer. But if there's a number, it's not that you can only do visual arts or painting and not do anything else. Obviously these things intersect. There might be music involved, there might be theatre involved, there could be film involved, all in the one proposal. But you identify maybe a primary art form, or if someone said you could, you know, what is this to you, you know, and you, if in doubt, call the team, you know, and say, this is what I'm doing. Does this fit with the criteria for music? And read it. But I would just pick one, because what happens is, if there is a primary emphasis on music, let's say in a proposal, and if there are other elements, then that proposal goes elsewhere to other teams and other advisors and people who assess it from a theatre point of view or from a visual arts point of view. But you happen to apply to the music team because there's a large component of music in it. Do you know what I mean? So it doesn't mean you're excluding everything else. And really, it's a way of things being processed and understood by the relevant expertise with the relevant budgets And it's a way of organizing the high volumes of things that come in. But when in doubt, I mean, these are the areas we love most in our team, where they're cross art form, where they're integrated, they're intersecting with so many other fields, and they're very exciting and interesting to us, but they often don't quite fit. You know, they don't quite fit. So don't hesitate to call and talk that through, you know, and we'll help as much as we can in terms of where the best fit might be.
And in terms of the network and also support maybe with developing the project, please feel free to talk to us, you know, send me an email. And we have been working for years now with various, mostly migrant and culturally diverse artist communities. And if that is of any use to you, we will be more than happy to send out a call for artists or to put you in touch with other people that we think could be interested in your project. Definitely, we are here to help.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, more than welcome. And first of all, because you have been talking for over 1 hour now, and I know how tiring it is, and also you are really, really busy with all what is going on. How much more time, and do you have any more time for us? Or
no, I don't want to commandeer the time with questions either, because I know you have other things to talk about and connect with. But sure. I'm fine for, you know, 10 more minutes, or
yes,
you know,
fantastic.
Okay.
John, maybe if we ask few other people who didn't get the chance to speak, we will get back to you in a second. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? We'll take a few more questions for Anne. And
hi, Anne. Sorry, I wanted to go back to your, when I first joined the chat, you were talking about one of the programs or one of the bursaries available was for mentorship specifically. That's something that I'm interested in right now. My name is Annie. I'm the blue and yellow blob in the corner.
Am I cutting you off, Annie? Sorry, you finished?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. So I would say a couple of things. I mean, if you're interested in the area of, I mean, mentorship across all areas is really important. And there are, I suppose the other thing I would say is, you know, I've been focusing very much on the area of arts participation, and that's cross art form. So the kind of things I've been talking about are often practice area resources, but there are also lots of resources in specific art form areas. So be that Theatre Forum or Visual Arts Ireland or other areas that specialise, and they may help you find your colleagues in a particular art form as well. So I would just say that. But with regard to mentoring, there are other programs out there, and what I say today is definitely not the sum total of all of this, and hopefully there are leads that will lead you to things, or you can come back to us and we will follow up. But in what I was speaking about specifically was the Artist in the Community scheme, particularly if you're looking to get involved, particularly in the area of participatory arts. You could look at a professional development award with mentoring. So they're a small amount of money, but it's kind of low commitment in the sense that it gives you a chance to work on an idea that mightn't be very developed yet. So that's managed by Create, and it's Arts Council fund that's managed by Create. But also in a lot of the bursary awards that we offer, you can propose work with a mentor on a particular idea. So
actually, sorry, I meant more like I'm interested in being mentors. I kind of have that role. I have that role in my music community as an older woman in my music community, and being mentors for people, and yeah, using that development toward like doing more classes so I get a better handle on that so I can do that to the best of my abilities.
Great. So you would, because it's a two-way street too. I mean, when you mentor, you always get a lot out of it, but especially if you have been working in the field for longer. I would, there isn't like just one way to do this, but certainly people have, I would let, you know, relevant organizations know that you're interested in doing that work, because that's where a lot of the queries come in, whereby others would be looking for someone. it's often quite an organic thing, really, some of those relationships.
Oh,
but
yeah.
I know Centre for Creative Practices and a lot of others have all run mentoring programs at different times, but I don't think there's an ongoing database. It tends to move and flow, but certainly the national networking events, the resource organizations that exist, I would let them know you're there and you're interested. And you know, if there were, I don't know, not so much the colleges, it is, I mean, somebody would just, more than somebody, I'm sure, would absolutely adore to work with you, but they don't know you're there yet and willing and available.
Oh, yeah.
And they might know you're there, but they mightn't think of approaching you either. So yeah. I would also let your local authority arts officer know. If you haven't got someone in mind already, or they you, but you do have all of that learning to share, in terms of building the capacity of others as well. It's very positive, and I don't have a simple answer for you. But I would let people know that you are interested in that role.
Cool. Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's hard to do sometimes.
Please feel free also to send us a short info about yourself, because we do keep it on file, and we do have artists coming to us and looking for mentors. And we run, as unmentioned, mentorship schemes. So if you never know, if there will be need for this, we are more than happy to recommend people.
Cool.
I wouldn't be shy about just dropping people a line about that and just saying, you know, I'm out there and I'm interested in this field if people come looking, you know, and happy to make the connections.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's something that's kind of developing at the moment more as like an idea, and I'm trying to make that a reality, but I'm also kind of like, all right, how do I do this? So, yeah.
Yeah, there are examples of documentation of previous mentoring relationships and programs that would be just interesting for you to look at in terms of how you might structure things, you know, as well. So, I know Monica has done a lot of work in that area and probably has a list.
Exactly.
We have a list as well. If you don't mind dropping me a line, Annie, I can send you what I have on it.
Great, yeah, if you can put your email addresses in the chat.
Lithium Arts Office runs yearly mentoring schemes. We did the introductory workshops about how to mentor and how to be mentored. And so if you check their website, they have this is for artists based in Leitrim, in County Leitrim, but you might get an idea or talk to the arts officer there, and they might give you maybe some information that will help you further with this.
Great, thank you, ladies.
No worries. Emerald, you have a question, yeah?
Virtue. My name is Virtue.
Sorry.
You going back to my previous question, I suppose what I do is unique in the sense that I use African prints that I get from Ghana and from a little bit from the EU as well to design. But they're more than just African prints. There are other prints and fabrics and stuff that you know I like to bring in to show people, to tell people about, and I've always deemed what I do wearable art. So I think just being on the call, you know, I've always wanted to if it were possible to have an exhibition, a small exhibition, and just, you know, expose people to, I mean, I know African prints is now being widely known, but there's still a lot more to it than what, you know, than to the eye. So for me, I've always explored more of the artistic side of it. It's what draws me, the patterns, the colors and stuff like that. Is that something that, and if I wanted to say put on an exhibition and say, where would I start?
I would look at visual arts and the supports available from the visual arts team, because that is the kind of work that would fit within there. But you can always come back to us as well if you're unsure. Having looked there, if you can call anyone there, or you can call us and we can chat more about it.
Okay, so start with the visual arts.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of exhibitions and that kind of work, that would be where you could start.
And as I mentioned to other participants, of course, contact us as well if we can maybe bring you in at least into the group show as a part of New Voices of Ireland, or share with you our experience from running and presenting and putting together different shows, and we are more than happy to do it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Guys, maybe one or two maximum more questions for Anne, and we will then wrap up this part of the session. Is that okay? One more question, anybody? Francesca, you are muted.
Hi. I'm Francesca. I'm from the Mother Tongues Festival. So I suppose I didn't want to join, as I'm not an artist, but I deal with artists a lot, and a question that I get very often, especially in the field of participation, is what's the best way to apply for a grant application? Are they going to look at my language? Are they going to look at my spelling mistakes? Are they going to judge me for X, Y, and Z? And by the time people have asked themselves all those questions, they haven't applied for the grant. And probably that's why we don't see African art in Ireland or in participation or anywhere, and so many other cultural and artistic expressions. And sometimes I have offered people to help, but I kind of feel, you know, I might be taking a direction that is not the direction that the artist might want to take. Is there something in the Arts Council, like I know there's other organizations, I know Create have been always really extremely helpful on all levels, and I know obviously Monica and everybody's there to help, but is there something that is coming from the Arts Council to show an acknowledgement of maybe the challenges of even the fear of applying for funding, that maybe you've applied before, you haven't got it, and maybe you give it up because you think it's not for me?
Yeah, absolutely. That's like we're working hard internally to develop more supports for accessing Arts Council funding. So through existing mechanisms and through new mechanisms, and more support with making applications, and support, if be it around language, be it around terminology or just English language or whatever it would be, but also for people with disabilities or mental health issues or others who would like a bit more support or like to ask those questions and have someone that has a bit more time. So that's something we are working on, and we are absolutely making cases and trying to develop programs for funding for that. There's very limited, there's some funding for that at the moment, but it's not very clear. It's more informal than formal, if that makes sense, and that's not really good enough, and we're very conscious of that, and particularly part of our equality, human rights and diversity policy. That's something we really do want to make more accessible. So there's going to be a number of different ways of doing that, but none of that is fully decided upon at this time. So it wouldn't be right for me to mention any of it because a lot of it's been worked on, but it's absolutely front of mind, and it is preoccupying a lot of people in terms of how it can be more accessible and more support in terms of making applications and not having unnecessary barriers. It's difficult enough already at times. But I would say, just categorically say, it's the idea that is judged for, you know, in terms of, and it really isn't spelling mistakes, and it isn't being really articulate and I suppose, you know, in terms of art college speak, maybe, or master's speak. It's not about that. It's the actual core idea and the proposal. And if it's in the area of arts participation, for example, it's who are you working with? Are they interested too? What other voices are in the proposal? And the other stuff really doesn't matter, particularly in our team, because at the core is the artistic idea and the relationships that are there, and where you might be going with it. So is it feasible, even if you don't know the outcome? In other areas, you know, in visual arts and other areas, I think the language around the art forms, you know, is maybe more part of the work. But it really ultimately is the idea, and nobody is going to judge an application in terms of spelling mistakes or any of that kind of stuff. You can see that straight away, and it truly is about the idea and the proposal. But you know, it would be amazing, and I know a lot of people have been very supportive to others making applications for the first time. But also don't hesitate, even if you're, you know, to contact the team if there's something that people are unsure of. But I know we can't write it for anyone, so that doesn't always help. But maybe there's something that might encourage someone so they don't give up, as you say, that one, you know, because it is daunting. We get that, and we're absolutely trying to address that.
Yeah, no, I can only echo your question on one hand side. On the other, I can also mention that I have been working with local artists, born and bred Irish, who said, I'm dyslexic, I have this problem, and I hate writing. I'm a visual artist, or I'm a musician. Writing is just not my medium. And they cannot even encompass the text as such. People think in different ways, and definitely I think the best is to encourage them to work in tandems, to work with somebody who might help them. Sometimes even if they talk to another person, they can better formulate their thoughts this way, and maybe then they get help with typing it up. There are some methods how you can work around it, but it's definitely a big problem. Is there any other question? I know we promised John that you will have the last word. Is there any other questions, or because I know we've taken a lot of Anne's time and I don't want to keep her any longer, if that's okay with you guys. Or John, is it urgent?
Can you hear me? Hello? Well, I'd like to thank both Anne and Monica for putting on this interesting, informative video chat. It's my first Zoom meeting, so it's all new to me. But I'd just like to say, Anne, you know, I have a lot of experience. I set up the art trail here in Cork, and I ran a voluntary arts organization in London, and I've had a lot of dealings with different organizations, but it seems that you put a lot of faith in Culture Ireland and the arts officers of Ireland. But here in Cork, I can only speak for Cork, but we have dreadful, appalling arts officers down here. Like, they're appointed by the council, they've got no artistic background quite often. We have the Cork County Arts Officer in the job for about 30 years. So if you're like me and you've been critical of the arts officer at any stage, you're never going to get anything off them. But with Culture Ireland, I had dreadful experience. I went to their seminar in Youghal, and they had 8 artists there. This was Culture Ireland for all of Cork. And there was 8 artists, but there was lots of councillors and politicians there. And they all got up and spoke, but they didn't even let the artists who were there speak. So Culture Ireland are not an organisation that's very good for artists in Ireland, I don't think. I think it's a political organisation. It's set up to waste funding in the arts. And, you know, I know so many people in Cork who've written to the arts officers and got no reply. So for the Arts Council, you should be judging these people like you judge the artists, and give them marks out of 10 for their performance, because, you know, artists are always the ones who get humiliated. And it's just, you know, I don't have any faith in these organizations, Anne, and I don't know why you have such faith in them.
John, you know, I understand. I think, you know, when you've been let down or disappointed in, you know, in certain respects, and repeatedly by the sounds of it, you know, at different times, you do lose your faith in the administrative systems. But I do know there are excellent people working in all of those fields. And I also know there's times in all of those agencies, the Arts Council included, where things work better at times than other times. So I wouldn't give up, I really wouldn't. And I know even just as a matter of course, there's always movement in these roles as well, and there's excellent arts officers in place in Cork City. I can tell you recently, because there's a change in team there, but we will beg to differ. But I would maybe go and talk to people again. But also, I think perhaps you're talking about Creative Ireland. Perhaps when you were talking about an event in Youghal, it could have been it was Culture Ireland, yeah. So because all of these agencies, including ourselves, have lots of different people involved, lots of different departments, and lots of different kinds of events. And I know the intention isn't cynical. The intention is really to build capacity and to support the arts. I know all of us can do that better, and I know it won't all meet everybody's need, and there's always going to be critique that is quite rightly given and things we can build on. And then there are other things that maybe just aren't a fit for what's been offered. So I hear what you're saying, I empathize, but I also know there are a lot of amazing people working strategically to try and have frameworks and systems and funding in place that really do support and meet the needs of artists and other organizations. So that is my own experience of it, and it's not all plain sailing by any means, but there is great support for the arts, increasing support for the arts too, also at government and political level. So that's my own experience, but I know it differs, and I accept that, what you're saying.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much to Anne, first of all, for your time, for taking the questions and taking also tough and critical questions. And it's always difficult, but thank you to everybody to sharing their opinions. I would like to thank Anne, because we really don't want to take up more of your time. If you want to stay, of course, you are more than welcome. That's absolutely not a question, but I do appreciate that you've spent with us a good amount of time, and that might be as much as you can. So feel free to say goodbye, and we are absolutely grateful, and we do not. Anne is one of the examples, John, that it is incredibly supportive, incredibly engaged and positive person to work with. So I hope you will meet people like Anne more often. But for the rest of you guys, Anne, thank you very, very much again.
If I could just say thank you to everyone. I really appreciate your time. I've enjoyed meeting you, and I'm more than happy if you want to drop me a line. I left my email in the chat there. And thank you so much, Monica, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And for the rest of us, guys, I wanted only to wrap up the session and to give you some idea what is going to happen in 2021. So first of all, so after the 6 sessions we had with the meeting point online, which normally used to be 2 days physical event in the Woodkey venue in Dublin, over 2 days with some speakers and some workshops, we might go back whenever possible to this physical format, but I think it makes also sense, as I mentioned before, to run the online sessions. And please feel free to email me any ideas of topics you would like to see covered. This year we had the funding, so really working on art applications, how to apply for funding. We had how to be professional artists with Nicola Anthony. We had mental health. We had what else did we have? There was something else. Sorry, guys. There was one more topic. So there were some ideas I've already received. I think we might run something around 5-6 sessions definitely next year. if we will be okay with funding, then maybe even more. But please feedback to me what are your needs, what sessions you would like to see as a part of the meeting point series, online and offline. But also, if you are preparing any projects, if you have any other needs as artists, especially migrant artists, artists working in the community, artists, culturally diverse artists, please talk to us and we will try to accommodate you and facilitate your work as much as possible. I'm myself independent curator. I'm very interested in meeting new artists, working with them, showcasing their work in Ireland and if possible also in other places in Europe. I'm very interested myself in socially engaged art, art in any political debate, art as a protest as well, so art activism and arts with different communities. So if that resonates with you, please get in touch. I'm also working on a project or on a research now for arts and COVID. If you had any interesting projects around art and COVID, please send the info to me. I will be working with a group of international curators next year, and we are putting an application and publication together. So let me know about it. Is there anything else? So annual meeting point, as I mentioned, New Voices of Ireland, the call for artists for 2021 will be sent somewhere early in the year. I'm not sure if it will be end of January or of February, but we will try to send it out quite early. Depending on the deadlines for other grants like capacity building or commission grant, we will be in touch with you about it. And please stay in touch, join our mailing list, and yes, share with us whatever troubles and bothers you or whatever great ideas you have. And we are always very happy to work together. Do you want to comment or do you want to ask any questions, guys, now?
Just if you could post your email that you'd like us to send to you in the chat that everybody's in, then we'll be able to utilize that.
Sure, I'm going to do it now.
Thank you.
My email is there. Please feel free to use it.
That's great. I also just wanted to say, if anybody here is interested or might have an idea, I've never done what I mentioned before, but it's something that's been on my mind and very passionate about. So if anybody here is interested in putting together an exhibit, I know that there's been lots in the UK recently. I think there is one on now at the moment even. The Tate had one recently, and it's all just about, African fabrics, texture, the message, the designs, the patterns, and, how far it goes back, the meanings. There's so much to it. And it's something that I really, really will bring here, because I think a lot of people automatically just feels that African prints are just exclusive. It should be just exclusively available for people for African descent. Sorry, but I can't out my tongue. Which is so not true. I think if that was the case, African print and African fashion would not have gotten to where it is now. And I think that, as a country, Ireland, where, we just need to bring it in a bit and explore it and talk about it and, discuss it. It's all part of what's going on in the world today anyway, regarding, Black culture and everything. And of course, how it ties into everything else going on around the world. So it'll be great to get a few people together if anybody has the expertise or the interest to, Zini, I know you are. So if anybody else is interested, please do. I put my email up there. I would love to. And, I'm always looking to meet new people instead of working always in the studio isolated. So it'd be great to meet new people as well.
Thank you. Any other comments, ideas? No, that was probably long enough session and everybody's tired, but great. Thank you again very, very much for joining us, guys. That's really brilliant. I'm so happy to see that the sessions resonate with so many people and that people find it useful. And that's why I'm so glad we came up actually with this idea. We had to try out something, and we will continue, and I hope we will all stay in touch and do great projects together. Okay, or at least we can visit each other projects whenever it will be possible. It will be possible. So for now, take care, guys. Thank you again. And I will talk to you all very soon. Okay,
bye.
Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure. Ciao. Bye bye.